Fallout New Vegas is a game about Chandler from Friends and Dr. House touching you inappropriately. So today I wondered what it would be like to beat Fallout New Vegas as Crazy Dave from the hit game Bubsy 3D. The rules are simple. I must do whatever Crazy Dave would do in any given situation. But first, why don't you subscribe? It's free, and you can always unsubscribe later if you decide I'm cringe. The game opens with Chandler putting a bullet in our courier. This event did something to our friend. It turned him both crazy and ginger. So from now on, he will only ever be known as Crazy Ginger Dave, or just Crazy Dave for short. We then get taken in by Dr. Michael Bublé and create our character. This is the closest I could get to creating Crazy Dave in Fallout New Vegas' engine. According to Plants vs Zombies lore, Crazy Dave is actually a very intelligent character and is actually on the same exact drugs as the PvZ replanted dev team. Dave is also a very charismatic fella, so his starting attributes consist of 2 into strength, 2 in perception, 3 in endurance, 10 in charisma, 10 in intellect, 3 in agility, and a whopping 11 in luck. The game then had the audacity to make Dave pick his skills, so naturally, with Dave looking like he can handle explosives, we chose that, science and speech, since he talks in a way that none of us mortals can possibly comprehend. With all of our skills and attributes chosen, we can finally begin our journey. So we steal every single drug we can get our hands on from Michael Bublé and set off to Goodsprings, equipping Dave's chosen weapon, the shotgun, since it is what Dave wielded in Dave Rush, the hit Plants vs Zombies fan game where Dave takes too much acid and sees regular people as zombies. Moving into Goodsprings, we meet our first companion of the journey, known as Bad Motherfucker, who decides to tag along with us out of fear that one day he will have to pay taxes. We then enter our first stop in Goodsprings, the saloon. But then something came over Dave, something evil. He started to thirst for human flesh, and he wanted to gun down anyone who sounded like a food item. Unfortunately, Joe Corn on the Cob was right next to us at the time, and he suffered a minor laceration due to the 12 shotgun pellets entering his skull. Now Dave satiated his bloodlust, we could finally start the tutorial by talking to Sunny Sad Smiles and shooting some bottles off a fence. Naturally, Dave struggled to understand the instructions, so he slapped them with a machete and blew them up. Unfortunately, this just wasn't good enough for Sunny, but walking right up to the bottles and shooting them and ramming the bottles up our rectum, now that was perfect. And now that the tutorial was finished, we could go meet a member of the Beatles in the nearby gas station. The wife beater informs Crazy Dave that a war is coming, so we go to talk to the townsfolk, who agrees to help us thanks to Dave's insane level of charisma, and Easy Pete gives us some sticks of dynamite. This act of kindness does something to Dave. Dave starts to fantasize about Pete day and night, knowing he can't have him, but then something snaps. Dave ignites the dynamite and he starts to throw it. Fortunately, it hit the gang after the Beatles member, and the town of Goodsprings is saved, so Dave hits the road to the nearby town of Primm, where we have our first encounter with the NCR. No! Apparently, Primm has no sheriff and has a fuck ton of outlaws in it, so Dave being Dave, we shot everyone where they stood, reprogrammed the robot to be the sheriff, and cause Crazy Dave is a lazy twat, we leave Primm asking no other questions other than how the fuck can a super mutant run at the speed of a nonce being chased by the police. On our way out of Primm, our boy Dave got a lead that our boy Chandler Bing was seen in Nipton, so we head down the road where Dave decided to talk to some friendly locals. Unfortunately, the bloodlust came back, and Dave has had enough of being talked to like that. This led Dave to internalise nasty people as zombies, so he could forgive himself for their brutal slaughter. With the zombies dead, we move forward to Nipton, where Spider-Man goes off on one about a lottery.
Yeah! Who won the lottery?
And we shoot him dead and relieve him of his lottery ticket so Dave can go and gamble once more. It is in Nipton where we encounter the main villains of this game, Caesar's Salad. And when Dave talked to them, he thought everything they were doing was justified. So he went off on his merry way to touch some plants and head to the nearest town of Novac. The main reason we were actually headed to Novac was to recruit a new soldier into our private army to verse the zombies. We needed to recruit Benson Boone himself. Unfortunately, Benson's wife was taken hostage, so Dave, being the good Samaritan that he is, decided he was going to give him closure enclosure and bring this nice old granny to the bottom of the dinosaur where she gets her tip blown off. Dave then feasted on her corpse and went to go collect Benson before going to talk with Manny from Ice Age. Manny then tells us to go suck off some ghouls or something, I don't know, I wasn't paying any attention. Next thing we know, we're at the ghouls masturbation station where we are called ugly by a big green arm, so Dave acts accordingly, killing him and then eating the nearby door frame before slaughtering every single zombie in sight with some sick 360 no-scopes that were performed live on Twitch. Speaking of which, all my videos are streamed over at twitch.tv/Whoie, so why don't you come on by for a free cookie? Once the situation at the zombies masturbation station was resolved, Dave started to hallucinate and started to take jet to avoid his emotional baggage, so we move on to Baldur's Gate City thanks to the lead given to us by Manny from Ice Age. It is here where we desecrate a war memorial to the dismay of this random bellend whose brother fought in the war. Naturally, Dave thought it was an appropriate response to call him and his brother a little bitch before being thrown right into a hostage negotiation with a man called Ketchup. Thanks to Dave having developed his own language during his time in the Great British Seagull War, he managed to talk Ketchup down before telling the commander to open fire on him anyway. Crazy Dave then joined in on the massacre and took Ketchup's headband, which was laced with LSD. This LSD had the effect of making anyone staring at it think it was a frying pan, but it was in fact a symbol of war. Now that Dave has spilt the blood of his enemies in most areas of New Vegas, we went onward to Freeside, where Dave wanted to show he meant business, so he gunned down a kid's pet rat. Filled with guilt, Dave unfortunately started taking more jet than ever, becoming fully addicted, turning his bloodstream into 70% jet and 40% piss. On his come down, Dave was more filled with rage than ever before, so he gunned down a child in the street who he thought was an imp before teabagging his corpse. Since Dave has an intellect we can only dream of, we attempted to talk a security robot out of our way, but here we realised we were one level short to talk the robot down, so we had to go and find some mercenary work. So I questioned what kind of work would Dave be best at? Well, thanks to Dave's muscular frame and intimidating physique, I stationed him as a bodyguard for a nearby gun store. Unfortunately, Dave was too high on jet at the time to do his job properly, and an IDF member slipped through the cracks and war crimed the entire gun store. To be fair, I hardly see how this is Dave's fault, seeing that there was another bodyguard out there, but it didn't stop the other bodyguard from trying to murder Dave, but all he did was provide Dave with some more lunch. On the bright side, this little task gave me the level I needed to go and make the robot stand down, and we then enter the strip. Dave heard word that his boy Chandler Bing was in the Tops Casino, so he immediately went in, surrendered all of his weapons but one, and then sweet-talked him into bed, where Dave could finally exact his revenge. While Chandler waited for Dave got out his switchblade and gave him the authentic London experience. It is here that Dave finally found his iconic white shirt, and he put it on to embrace who he was truly meant to be. A man who against all odds will stand against the coming apocalypse and take the fight to the Zomboss, who turns out has been going undercover by the codename of Mr. House. It was finally time to decide the fate of New Vegas, but Dave has to sleep off his jet usage, so he will return in a couple of days with the next episode of Only Dave.